Ah.
Good morning, Vessantara. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey.
Good morning, everyone.
Good to see everyone. We actually have a bit of sunshine here where we live near Adhisthana. Hasn't been a lot of that just recently. And various people have sunshine coming through their windows, like looks like in Wiesbaden it's sunny.
And in Bristol.
And in Bristol, Dharmavantri, great. Yeah.
Good evening. It's not daytime here.
Hi, Dharmamati.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Oh, it's so dark and rainy.
Oh, well, never mind do picture Lila. Okay, so how are we doing with getting people in? We got 102, that's pretty good. So on some of the previous retreats that I've been leading, particularly with the whole current situation and lockdown, been really emphasizing a couple of questions in meditation. Who are you practicing with and who are you practicing for? Because that's particularly that sense of who are you practicing with really can help that getting away from, because I'm physically isolated, I'm therefore kind of cut off from people. Yeah, if we move on to the heart level, we're not isolated at all. So we'll put a bit of that into the meditation this morning or evening, in your case, Dhamma. All right, so let's start with some meditation. So as usual, we start by giving ourselves space, freedom. Don't have to do anything. Don't even have to be anyone. Don't have to have an identity. Just the body and the heart mind. And any sounds. Just experience as it is. And when we don't have to do anything or even be anyone, the tendency is for energy in the body to move down. So relaxing into the earth. So feeling or imagining that process. Feeling or imagining energy and awareness gathering below the body, down into the earth. And if it feels helpful, imagine breathing in energy from the earth, the qualities of the earth, up into the body, into the area below the navel. Now balancing and adding to that grounding movement. It's a movement of awareness up the spine, a movement of lightness, opening the upper body. Feeling in ourselves for that combination of relaxation and awareness. Aware relaxation. Now really feeling into the body. Letting the awareness be kind. Now coming into our heart center. And from our heart center, let's be aware of this question: who are we practicing with? So one answer is all of us in our retreat community, all of us meditating together. Feeling our heart connection with one another. Doesn't really matter whether we're meditating 3 feet away from one another or 3,000 miles away. Still the heart connections. We're being followers of the Buddha, members of the order, and through this shared meditation, Let's take a minute or two just to feel into that and wish one another well. And if the heart mind isn't limited by space, it needn't be limited by time. Which means we could also feel our connection with all those followers of the Buddha who practiced wisdom and compassion, who've meditated, taught the 7-point mind training down through the centuries. Most of Bante's teachers would have been practitioners of the mind training. Most of them would probably have taught it. So let's see if we can link to this one great meditation on wisdom and compassion that's really been going on for 2,500 years. See if we can feel the support of that. Now let's take all that support, all that wisdom and compassion into our heart and let it appear as the refuge. With a sense of practicing with one another, with all these realized practitioners, this great meditation on wisdom and compassion, and with the refuge in our heart. Let's just begin with Tonglen for ourselves. And when we're ready, let's practice Tonglen for one another. Now the meditation can widen out into the world. Still with a sense of all of us part of one meditation. Everyone on the retreat and connected to all the practitioners of wisdom and compassion. Just one meditation going on. Now when we're ready, relaxing, doing anything. And dedicating the merits to all beings. Okay. That question, who am I practicing with, is a very powerful one. And it's particularly important in these isolating times. Bhante once gave a talk about mental fidelity. It's sort of mental fidelity, but it's sort of heart fidelity. It's just really keeping that sense of connection that we all have. And it can be connection with other order members, friends in the order, But there is this kind of vast perspective where, yeah, we're not only connected to practitioners now, but we are also connected to the practitioners of the past. It's, apart from anything else, when they were teaching and practicing, they were thinking of us. You know, they may not have been particularly thinking of us individually. They didn't know us, but they were certainly thinking about people in future times. They wanted the Dharma to carry on down through the generation. Yeah, so with Bhante, it's like in the very early days of the FWBO, as it then was, he'd talk about it as if it was quite a substantial organization. It would sometimes take people a while to realize that it was him on a tiny little handful of order members. But he wasn't being a fraud. It was just that he kind of had this sort of, in his imagination, he was imagining all these people who were going to come to the Dharma and be connected. And here we are. Yeah. So we can draw on that sense of a practice that is just kind of rolling down the centuries. And yeah, the wheel of the Dharma is just rolling and doesn't stop. And we can connect with that whole movement. And it's one of these things like with the idams, to start off with, it feels like, oh, that's just an idea. But the more we tune into it, the more of a sort of reality it can become. And then you have this tremendous source of connection, and yeah, it can feel like there's just this one great meditation that's been going on for the centuries that we're plugging into. Okay, so this morning, my time. Oh yes, I want to. Oh, firstly, just a thing about the web page. I've put an updated version of the text on the web page. It's not really very different. The translation that Vijayamala and I did when we came off our 3-year retreats is the same, but all those little bits in square brackets, which were reminders and little explanations when it talks about the 3 this and the 4 that, we've just tidied those up so that they reflect more the approach to the teaching that I'm taking. So if you'd like the updated version, it's there. Yeah, so I want to go back to sort of a little bit of fundamentals about Tonglen. We touched on this the other day, and I've touched on it on previous retreats, but I want to make sure that all of us are fully have fully got this, which is just this way in which we can use the giving and taking, whatever's going on, whatever mental state we've got into, wherever it feels like there's nowhere to turn, there's always a way of turning that into a connection with the Dharma and with compassion. So I just want to spell that out again. And you can do this on the relative level and the ultimate level. So we'll probably do the relative level and then have a break and go ultimate after that. So yeah, on the relative level, let's say that Vessantara is leading a meditation, and the way in which he's leading it, isn't working for you, and you're starting to feel sort of frustrated and a bit kind of tight somewhere. So taking the mind training approach, there's that feeling of frustration and tightness. And that kind of connects you to, oh, okay, so finding the refuge in relation to that. So you find the result, you open out, you become aware, well, there are all these maybe 25 other people who are in the meditation that Vessantara is leading, who are also feeling frustrated and a bit squeezed. So you become aware of them and you breathe in all that. You feel the fellow feeling of all that. It's not just you who's suffering, but more generally, you breathe in all the frustration of those who are, feeling kind of tight because of what they're being told or the situation that they're in. Everyone who's feeling kind of squeezed right now, you really feel that, and that sort of opens something. Usually it opens your heart, and you breathe all that in and you send out whatever's needed, which is maybe ease, spaciousness, peace, quiet, nobody talking to you, whatever it is. Yeah, it all goes out. Yeah. So this hindrance, this difficulty, triggers a connection with the refuge. It triggers fellow feeling with other living beings, and it triggers your heart producing a response of the qualities that you're missing now. Yeah. The qualities that are missing appear. Yeah. But then maybe you try that and it just doesn't seem to work. No, so you sort of do it, but somehow, you don't quite believe in it really, or it just doesn't do it. And you think, oh, rats, But then you catch yourself and you think, oh, right, I'm practicing mind training. So you connect to the you think, oh, refuge, yes. Oh, there's the yidam, or have you're feeling the refuge in your heart. And you let the refuge sort of take in all that suffering of you of having tried something, tried a remedy that didn't work. You take that into your heart. And you also connect with all those other beings out there in the world who have been trying remedies that don't work, on all sorts of levels, other meditators whose antidote to their hindrances didn't work. But people off the net who, read something about, miracle cure for ingrowing toenails and kind of believe that and spent $10 and it didn't work. Whatever, just take it all in. Take it all in. Yeah. Breathe it in, and you send out, what's really needed. The real solution. What's truly helpful. Yeah, that sense, and a sense of ease around having to find a solution, having to find a remedy, having to find the right thing. All a sort of peace in relation to all that. That all comes out from the refuge. You don't have to kind of program what the refuge is going to send out. Usually, you just tune into it, and the quality, certainly after a bit of practice, the qualities that are needed, they tend to make themselves apparent. They make themselves known. Yeah. So you do that, but maybe even that doesn't work. You're really in a bit of a state, and it's like nothing works. It's just hopeless. The entire thing is a write-off. So just as you're about to kind of, give up completely, there's this little voice which goes, refuge, mind training, and you go, oh, okay. So you turn towards the refuge in your heart, and you connect with that and right practice, and you breathe in for yourself and for all those other beings. All those feelings of being completely defeated, of everything being completely hopeless, of just life is a write-off, I'm a write-off, the whole thing is disaster. You just take all that into your heart, into the refuge, and the refuge sends out in response courage, encouragement, qualities that start to transform this, whatever it is for you. For some people, it might be a sense of love or brightness or freedom, whatever. Yeah, it just comes from your heart. Yeah. So there is no point. There's never a time where you can't, where this doesn't apply. Yeah. There's always a kind of like a room to maneuver. Yeah. It's like you're never completely kind of pinned to the wall. Yeah. Just when it seems like you're trapped, you know, there's this movement that you make, connecting to the refuge, yeah, connecting to others who feel in the same way as you, empathizing with them, and practicing giving and receiving. So it's really a very skillful practice, and yeah, I've tried hard in all sorts of mental states, but I haven't yet found any that, you know, I can't find a situation where it just obviously doesn't apply. Yeah, where it just obviously can't work. Yeah, it always seems to apply.
They can let you know.
Hmm?
They can let you know.
Oh yes, yeah. Vijayamala's just saying you can let me know. Yeah, if you find a mental state or a situation where, you know, this just doesn't apply. Yeah, please let me know. I'd be fascinated, and let's see. Could offer a small prize for anyone who defeats the mind training. Yeah. All right. So you get the idea of that, I hope. Yeah. This is probably a good minute to stop in that case. So let's have our what's the time? Yeah, let's have our 15 minutes. So we'll come back just before 10 past. Yeah. See you then. Okay. What are you doing? Yeah. It's like most of you are around. So before the break, I was talking about the skillful way in which whatever's going on, whatever is difficult that's going on, we can always apply this Tonglen, this giving and receiving. And we finished with the Tonglen challenge, which was a small prize for anyone who can come up with a situation in which it's really not applicable at all, in which it just doesn't work. Yeah, good. And talking in the break, Vijayamala was making the point that with a bit of practice, it's not even, say, because this operates both in meditation and out of meditation, just all the time. With a little bit of practice, it's not like you have to kind of very consciously produce an image of the Buddha or the Idam or whatever it is as the refuge in your heart. There's just this sense of the qualities there in your heart, and you can just immediately kind of breathe in, knowing that the qualities will be there and it will have an effect and that there'll be a response. Yeah, so it becomes quite easy and flowing. Is that the point you were trying to make?
A question of confidence.
Yes, it's kind of, you become more confident in those heart qualities. Okay, so I said earlier that we'd also look at working with things from the ultimate bodhicitta point of view. And I got a question about this. I'm just wondering which to start with. Maybe we'll go with the question because it's a bit more, well, it's quite sort of theoretical, and then we'll go from there into the practice and then go from there into meditation. That's the plan. So, I'm not sure if I'd only got this in the break. I'm not quite sure if I can manage to not to summarize it and not read all of it. Anyway, this is about the training verse, the piece of advice talking about the unborn nature of mind. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, maybe I'll just read the whole thing. It's probably easier than stopping trying to summarize. In his book on anapanasati, and contrasting the view of the nature of mind in the early sutras with later traditions like Dzogchen and Zen, Analayo writes, quote, "In spite of the fact that the ability to know is continuously present in all our experiences, in the end, it is nevertheless just a flow, a process of knowing. The very approach used for its recognition in anapanasati is directly conjoined to impermanence. Such conjoining marks," and then this is highlighted, "a significant contrast to some later practice traditions concerned with the nature of mind, where at times a tendency to reification manifests." Yeah, you remember res in Latin means a thing. So Analayo is saying that later practice traditions, they don't just see a sort of flow of awareness, they're turning awareness or mind into a thing. Even to the extent of positing the mind, of putting forward the view of the mind as an unchanging and permanent agent in experience. Yeah, so Analayo says Some later traditions will see mind as unchanging and permanent, whereas in the early Buddhist tradition, it's just seen as flow, as impermanent. Such a position is not compatible with early Buddhist thought, where mind or consciousness is seen as a changing process subject to causes and conditions, ensuring that its impermanent nature is not lost sight of. So then that's the end of the quote. And then the questioner says, do you think there is, quotes, a significant contrast to some later practice traditions, or even, quotes, an incompatibility with, quotes, early Buddhist thought? Okay, so that's the question. Yeah, thank you. So I certainly think that in later Buddhist tradition, mind and awareness are sometimes seen in a different way from the early Buddhist tradition in some places. So all this springs out of examine the nature of unborn awareness. So then the question is, what does unborn mean there? What's unborn about awareness? So there are two possible explanations of what unborn might mean. One could be that it's something which has always existed. It's always been there. And you could turn it into a thing called mind, which always exists. And some commentators say that certainly some later followers of Yogacara have this position, that mind is a sort of ultimate reality. The Yogacara tradition and its development over the centuries is really complex, and we're definitely not going there this morning. I'm not sure that the Yogacaras themselves would agree with that, but anyway, that's the charge, that they've turned mind into something that ultimately exists. Yeah? But there's another way of taking this word unborn, which is that mind isn't any kind of a thing. It's like a thing kind of can come into existence and exist for a certain length of time, like these glasses that I'm holding in my hand, they're produced on a certain day, and then there's the thing called these glasses, and here they are at the moment, and one day, they'll just get broken up to the point where we won't be able to call them a pair of glasses anymore, and they'll cease to exist. Yeah? But if you don't see mind like that, if you don't see it as something that you can point to, which has a location, which has any kind of substance, then you can't say that it has a beginning. You can't say that it comes to an end. So in that sense, it's unborn. So the fact that this text says that, talks about the unborn nature of awareness, isn't suggesting that it's treating mind as some kind of ultimate existence. There's kind of more we could say about this, and I'm afraid
Would you mind repeating that, please?
Yes, because it's worth going into. I think a crucial thing to keep in mind, we can, if we don't want to get into theoretical debates, and we could leave those to the scholars. If we're wanting to focus on the Dharma as putting an end to suffering, then we need to also focus on the fact that the conceptual Dharma is never doing justice to how things are, and that it's all remedies. Yeah, it's all antidotes to our suffering. Yeah? So you can have different sort of Dharma views which antidote different aspects of suffering, or which are appropriate for people at different stages in their development. So we did this in the order, you know, we sort of introduced people to the Dharma gradually, because some bits of Dharma given straight away would throw people or would be too much, and so it wouldn't work as the Dharma for them. Yeah. So once we have that sense that, okay, we can't pin down in words really how things are, but we can take really helpful stances which will undermine ways in which we cause ourselves suffering, then that gives us a certain kind of freedom to look at things in different ways. So we can take a look at experience in terms of time, and we can say, yes, it's really helpful to emphasize that awareness is a flow, yeah, which means that everything that appears within awareness is a flow. Because it helps break down seeing things in terms of fixed, substantial entities. It breaks down the sense of me as a fixed, substantial entity. And that releases an awful lot of energy, and it can take us, yeah, it can probably, if we really just follow that through, it can take us to the end of suffering. But we can also very helpfully see awareness or mind in terms of space. So it's a bit like there seems to be no limit to awareness, and awareness can happily take, you know, Dharma Mati could go out at the end of this evening, and you know, it'll be evening and then it'd be night, and he could look at the moon and he could look at the stars, and his awareness wouldn't have any trouble in sort of taking in Alpha Centauri or whatever. There doesn't seem to be any limit to space, to awareness in that way. And seeing mind like that, seeing mind as like great open spacious awareness, is also really helpful. And it tends probably to break down more our sense of limitation and separateness, and I'm in here and everything else is out there. That sense of existential aloneness, all that. Yeah. So it produces a sense of spaciousness and perspective and serenity, yeah, ease. So both of those are helpful. Yeah, seeing awareness as flow, as impermanent is really helpful. Seeing awareness as open, limitless, spacious is really helpful. But it isn't helpful to turn awareness into some kind of a thing or an entity. And it's maybe easier to turn this great spacious awareness into a thing or an entity, to turn it into mind. And the way in which the traditions that Dhammarati mentions, sort of Dzogchen and Zen, and also Mahamudra, avoid that, and I think usually they do. I have a fair knowledge of Zen, but it's not that great, is by combining that sort of looking at the open spacious nature of mind comes from Yogacara. So what these traditions do is they combine Yogacara and Madhyamaka. And so, for instance, if you wanted to, there's a short summary of Mahamudra, which starts with everything is mind. So you could think, oh, okay, everything's mind. You know, mind's what truly exists. But then the second line is mind is empty. Yeah. So mind is unfindable, is ungraspable. It is not a thing. There is no entity called mind. Okay. So by bringing together those two, they guard against creating entities like mind or awareness, you know, capital M, capital A. Yeah. And if we really follow through that Madhyamaka view of things, well, it stops us guarding against taking any of these views as real and final. You know, we don't find any of these things. We don't find space, we don't find time, we don't find flow, we don't find awareness, we don't find mind. So yeah, I hope that sort of goes some way towards addressing the question. I think there are certainly differences of approach and emphasis. You can find some elements in the early tradition which sort of see mind a bit more sort of open, see it more in terms of that sort of spacious dimension. But yeah, I don't think possibly, except perhaps in some later Yogacara, and I wouldn't even be sure about that. I don't think there's a tendency to reify mind in the later tradition. Okay, that was a. So let's come back to. Let's come back to me and my suffering. And so we were looking before the break at how yeah, we can work on the relative level with something, with some cause of unease, and it will be connected to the heart, and we connect to all those who feel similarly, and there's the response from the heart. That's the qualities that are needed. But we could also work more on the ultimate level. So there we are sitting in meditation, and Vessantara is still going on sort of, in this way that just really doesn't work. So I feel frustrated. So I could apply everything is dreamlike to the situation. I could apply it to Vessantara's voice. It's just like an echo. It's like a dream. There's no need to get caught up with it. No need to react to it. It's just passing. Yeah, if I go into it, I can't even find anything to pin down there that I'm reacting to. And similarly, I can't find the me that's reacting. I look and, yeah, where is this person who's feeling squeezed exactly? Even really, sort of obvious evident suffering. Yeah, if you're sitting in meditation, you have a pain in your knee. That seems really clear. There it is. There's my knee, and here's the pain. Ouch. But when we investigate into it, we get sort of beyond the idea of a pain, and we get beyond this sort of mental map that we have with my knee down there, and we can explore and explore. And firstly, this knee doesn't know that it's my knee. It doesn't have any sort of property of Vessantara written on it. And the knee itself, well, that's a whole, when I go into experience, it's a whole collection of sensations. There's a warmth and pressure where it's against the ground, and then there are all these little feelings of energy. And what I'm calling a pain, well, even that seems to be an interpretation. There's strong sensation there, but it's changing. It's actually changing second by second. It's almost just like sort of vibrations or something. So I can go more and more into the experience, and yeah, it's not as my mind is as I'm talking to myself about it. The reality is very different, and I can also go into the me that doesn't want the pain in my knee, and Where is that? Who is that? What is that made up of? And again, I'll find that there's a sort of flow of words and feelings and awareness there, an awareness that sort of somehow I've managed to make separate from the awareness of my knee. My knee is down there somewhere hurting me. So I can just take all, I can go into all of that and really explore and explore and explore. And that pain in my knee catalyzes a whole Dharma investigation, which over time, with repeating, with not just pains in knees, but all kinds of things, yeah, it becomes clear just how we're creating suffering and the conditions that there need to be in place for it to be there. We need to have a view of, yes, in this case, I need to have a view of, you know, my knee, that it's a pain, that I don't want this, etc., etc. And we can go into any aspect. We can go into the object that feels like it's the cause. We can go into the subject, the me that doesn't like it. We can go into the relationship between the two. And if we really go into any of them, that helps to collapse the framework of conditions which is holding it in place. And it helps us to see more deeply into how things really are. Okay, I think that's plenty for now. So, yeah, so we've looked a little bit at the relative practice of Tonglen. We've had a little diversion into unborn awareness, and we've had a very quick look at how we could work from the wisdom perspective with this. Right, quick drink, and then let's meditate. Oh. So again, nothing to do, no one to be, no need for an identity. Just mind and body as they are. What Zen would call the true person with no name. the Can we feel a sense of coming to rest, almost coming home in that contact? And out of that, letting the body open towards the sky. Now the body, as much as possible, a field of kindly, loving awareness. Now coming into our heart center. And again, let's have a sense of who we're practicing with. All of us meditating together. Our retreat community, part of the great community of practitioners of mind training, practitioners of wisdom and compassion, however that's been packaged or put together. Our meditation, part of the great meditation. Draw on all these resources. We are adding our energy to that of all these other practitioners. Let's invite the refuge in our heart. And practicing giving and receiving for ourselves. Practicing for one another. Practicing for the world. Even if that means focusing on one person. Now again, just being. And sharing the merits, however we want to do that. Okay, thank you for that. It's a little bit noisy here during the meditation. I hope it didn't disturb you too much. Or if it did, I hope you either sort of dreamlike or breathed in that difficulty along with that of all the other beings around the world who are being disturbed by noise and so on. Yeah, that Tonglen challenge is still open. Okay, so have a good time until I see you next. Go well.
Thank you, Vessantara.
Thank you, Vessantara.
Danke.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vessantara.
Nice and very dirty.
Tusen takk, Vessantara.
It was it addressed the issue to the extent he understood it.
Well, there are. We could go more deeply into it, but it's best I could do on the spot in
Yeah, I think it was very good.
10 minutes. lots of darkies on this.
Sorry.
That's all right. No rush, no rush.
No, exactly.
Thank you.
People might be saying, talking.